Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, I'm Caleb Deloach, joined by Cody Hinkebine, and it's not technically all the way done, but Cody, we can pretty much put a bow on the basketball season here, especially in Southeast Missouri, as all of our teams are now done with for the season.
Yeah, had some small schools with some pretty good success. We'll wrap that up today, but some larger schools that almost made it there, but all in all, pretty good season here in Southeast Missouri.
Yeah, fun season of basketball coming to a close. At time of filming, when this comes out, we'll pretty much just have the Final Four and 4, 5, and 6 left to go. But yeah, like you said, we're pretty much done. Southeast Missouri teams, unless you want to count Donovan girls, are still technically playing. They'll be in the Final Four, but yeah, it's been a fun season to cover, fun season to talk about. You know, Cody and I do the radio for Jackson boys. That was a fun season, and yeah, it's all coming to a close now, and you know, it's kind of sad. Basketball season's always the best. It's always my favorite. A lot of action, a lot of games every single night, but yeah, it's a lot of games to cover here. To wrap things up, like I kind of alluded to, classes 1, 2, and 3 are completely done with basketball. All the championship games are over with now, boys and girls, and some, success, Cody, for some of the smaller Southeast Missouri schools.
Yeah, had a couple teams reach the Final Four. I don't think anybody won it, but had some pretty good games there, and definitely some outstanding players with some good success.
Yeah, and we can start by doing that. We can wrap up here with the classes 1, 2, and 3. I'll start on the girls' side, a team that did beat, the best SEMO representative there in Class 1 for girls, Chadwick. They knocked off Delta in sectionals down here in Delta, and they went on to win the state title. They won that 44-43 over Northeast High School. And in Class 2, we did have a Southeast-ish Missouri representative from Perryville, St. Vincent girls. Made a nice run, had a great season as well. Cody, they had a fantastic season. They played a lot of big schools, good teams. They beat Jackson. That was Jackson girls' lone loss in the regular season. And then, they showed pretty well there in the Final Four. Made some noise.
Yeah, under 500 last year. We kind of know why. They improved a lot this year, make a run all the way to the Final Four. And Tipton, they're in the semifinals. They actually started kind of slow. I mean, they got down 19-8 there in the second quarter. Kind of a turning point in that game. Slotzhauer, the best player for Tipton, averaging 20 points a game. She comes down, commits a charge, picks up her third foul. We go down on the other end, and she picked up her fourth foul there in the second quarter. So Tipton's best player checks out, 4 fouls. St. Vincent kind of cuts it, and then completed the comeback, and Slotzhauer came back in the game. Rubel kind of dominates, multiple and ones. Their player ends up fouling out, 2:50 to go. St. Vincent knocking down their free throws, completes it. Kate Rubel, 25 points in that one.
Huge Final Four.
Huge game for her. Adams added 15, so combine them two together for 40 points, and St. Vincent advanced to the state championship game.
Yeah, the pressure defense there really helped out a lot. They forced 22 turnovers in that game alone, so the defense was really good throughout that ball game. And then, in the championship, they did match up with a good Skyline team, lost 53-45. Skyline is, kind of one of those absolute powerhouse teams here in girls basketball. They've gone, that's now 2 in a row state titles for them. I think they matched or broke the public school record for girls. I think beating Scott County Central with 8 now state titles in their history. So they're a team that they are used to being there. They're used to playing these big games. And just too much Skyline in that one. And it was, once again, somebody we mentioned earlier, I said had a huge entire Final Four. Kate Rubel, she had 22 in that ball game. She played very, very well. She was pretty much the offense early in the ball game, scoring just about every possession, it felt like, the first 3 to 5 minutes, but then the tide just kind of turned. Not enough help around her. As like I said, Skyline, they've been there, they knew how to play in the big environment, and they came up with that win. Yeah,
you mentioned Kate had 47 points in 2 games, so very good 2 games for her at the state championships.
Yeah, they're not a team we can talk about a lot. They're not around here per se. They're not in Cape County, but they bring back 4 to 5 starters. There's a good chance that they are back in Columbia next season, in my opinion.
For sure.
Then in Class 3 for girls, we did have another a little bit further south in the Boot Heel representative, Portageville. They really ran through the first couple rounds of playoffs, and then in the Final Four, they ran into a very good Principia team, lost 61-29 there, and then they did also drop a third-place game to Lone Jack, 48-39. So season coming to a close for Portageville, but a very good year. They finished with 24 wins. Nice team. They had, a great season. Only one senior on the roster, Janiah Smith, obviously a fantastic player. I believe she was their conference player of the year. Only one senior there as well. A lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores. So we could be seeing Portageville, same thing, back in the Final Four next season. And then you can flip over to the boys' side. Same thing in Class 1. No Southeast Missouri representative in Columbia. The team from Southeast Missouri, Risco, they lost to Chadwick in the quarterfinals, and last time I said, it felt like that was the state title game. It went to overtime. Chadwick won 64-60, and kind of proved out that way, Cody. Chadwick just ran through the Final Four.
Yeah, overtime game against Risco back on the 7th. As you alluded to, that was going to be a great game. We knew it going in. We definitely knew it coming out, and Chadwick, 19-point state championship victory.
Yeah, very easy for Chadwick. Another back-to-back state champion team there. They won last year, so. In Class 2, we did have another Southeast Missouri team, Puxico. The Indians, awesome season, played great, a credible defensive team. Ran into a Canton team that just was too big. That was kind of a theme in Class 2 and 3 for Southeast Missouri boys teams. Canton has a very, very big starting lineup. Puxico, I don't know what it says on the actual roster. Nobody over 6'3", 6'4". And Canton had, 6'8" center that really just kind of dominated the paint. A couple other 6'4" guys. Made stuff difficult inside. And they got the win over Puxico 65-50, which was disappointing because a lot of people I know wanted to see Puxico play Eugene, who did win over Canton by 11. A lot of people thought that'd be a good game. But did not materialize. But Puxico, they bounced back. They blew out Lincoln 61-38 in that ball game. Landon Burchard controlled the game from the point guard position. He dominated throughout. And Puxico, a good season, 28-4, first time in the Final Fours since 1953, I think is what I said last time we were on here. So awesome year for them, 28 wins in a season. And, they are going to have some losses, but they are a team that's going to have a good team coming back next season. It might not end in Columbia, as they do have 5 seniors, a lot of good players. But, they have some guys coming back next year, Hancock, Long. They do have Burchard back. So it could be a good team. I expect them to kind of make some noise as well. I'm not sure what everybody else down in the Boot Heel has back in Class 2. There was a lot of really good teams in the Boot Heel this year. So it'll be competitive, though, once again. And Puxico will be definitely up there, and in the Stoddard County, very competitive as well. Then in Class 3, Cody, we had the Woodland Cardinals, a team that had never even won a district title. They made it to the Final Four. How did they do? I know they ran into a very good Principia team once they got there.
Yeah, and we kind of knew Principia was kind of ahead above everybody else. We knew it was going to be tough. Woodland drops that semifinal by 35, 85-50. Just way too much size from Principia, forcing Woodland into bad shots, kind of some unforced turnovers there for Woodland. Just didn't play well. We knew Principia would speed them up. Woodland did cut it to 10 there, but Principia went on a run to push it up there. Never really got close in the second half.
Yeah, and you could even say, especially in the first half, Principia wasn't even playing well, but they were just too big. I think their shortest player in the starting lineup is like 6'3", which is 2 inches taller than anybody on the entire Woodland roster. So it was just an uphill battle. Like I said, they were shooting like 25, 30% in the first quarter, but every time down the court, it was miss a layup, 6'9" kid gets a rebound. He might miss. The 6'7" kid gets a rebound. He'll probably finish it. So It was just tough once you got down inside for Woodland. But they did have a winnable game. They played well, but did drop that third-place game as well to Thayer, another good team, not too far out west of here.
Yeah, kind of two teams we thought were evenly matched going in. Thought it was going to be a pretty good game, and it was. Woodland actually pushed it to an 8-point lead at halftime, took an 8-point lead going into the break, and then third quarter was really the difference. I mean, Thayer just came out in the third quarter, seemingly couldn't miss. They outscored Woodland 23-8 in the third quarter, and Thayer shoots 78% in the second half. So anytime you do that, you're probably going to win the game. Thayer does hold on for a 7-point victory in the third place game.
Yeah, similar. It's not as egregious as Principia, but the Harrington kid, Devin Harrington, for Thayer inside, just dominated in the second half. He was just getting every rebound, scoring at will around the basket. And then Woodland's a team that, they do lose a little bit to graduation. They do lose Hayden Van Gennep and Lane Lee, two very good guards on the team, but they do bring back a pretty good rotation of guards out on the perimeter. Corbin Kinder will still be there. Calvin Layton will still be there. McCormick inside will still be there. Just need to stretch them out, grow a few inches would help. But Jackson Shock will be back. So these guys played well all season long. So they might take a little bit of a step back, maybe. But with the guys they do have coming back, super talented, could also take a jump themselves and kind of stay in that same stratosphere. And I don't have any doubt that they're capable of making a similar run they did this year, because they're going to be in a district, I assume, again with Scott City, and Scott City does lose a good amount themselves. So it'll be competitive again, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can't say enough about Woodland season, obviously. Scott City next year will probably be looking for revenge. They do have some underclassmen coming back themselves, so be another pretty good district.
Yeah, Woodland was so much fun to watch. You and I got to see them up close at the Christmas tournament. They were a lot of fun. And, they played a great schedule this season. They played a tough schedule. They took some losses, but, I think it made them better and got them kind of prepared for this time of year when they had to play close games, play good teams. And, they showed up when they needed to and got good wins down the stretch here and made a nice run. So it's definitely fun watching Woodland. I'll definitely be keeping up with them again next year, as they're bound to be very competitive once again. So.
Sure.
I guess we can jump up now in what we had going on this past week as far as some of the bigger classes, as class 4, 5, and 6, boys and girls, are now in the Final Four stage. And so they had sectionals and quarterfinals going on. A lot of good games, Cody. There was some very, very competitive games. Some teams still here in the Southeast Missouri region playing in those big classes.
Yeah, started with Class 4 on the boys' side. Dexter and Potosi. Dexter came out of kind of the Notre Dame district. They lose by 4 to Potosi, so ends their season 14-14 does Dexter. Potosi kind of led throughout the game. But it seemed like Dexter matched him step for step there, Caleb.
Yeah, they kept it close. It was Potosi would go on, they would jump up by 12, and it's like, oh no, they're about to put it away. But no, Dexter always had a run in them, bring it back to that 2 to 4 point game. They could just never kind of get over the hump and maybe take a 4 or 6 point lead. It was a home game. It was a pretty packed house over there at Dexter. I thought they had a good shot, and that Potosi team, won by 4 against Dexter, and now that Potosi team is in the Final Four. They knocked off Clayton in the next round. They're playing really well, so it kind of shows you how good Dexter was playing. They're a team you can never count out. Like you said, finished 14-14. They obviously play a tough schedule where they play these good Stoddard County teams like Woodland and Puxico. Then they also go over and play all the SEMO conference teams where they took a lot of their losses. But yeah, a good season for Dexter. They bring back a lot of guys next year. We'll have them a couple times playing Jackson for sure, and there'll be a team that plays Notre Dame and probably be in the same district as Notre Dame. But Dexter only losing one senior. They're going to be tough. I guess we can go over to, actually I'll flip over to the girls' side there in Class 4. That's where, Saxon, he's kind of the lone Cape County representative. They got knocked out in districts. Doniphan went on to win their district, and then they went on to beat Park Hill Central in sectionals, which is a big win. Park Hill Central went to the Final Four, went to the championship last season. Doniphan won there, and then they beat St. James by 2, and that was, they hosted as well. Doniphan did. So taking care of home court, getting a big victory. And they play a tough MICDS team in the Final Four. That's a team I watched Jackson girls play. They have one girl on their team that is awesome. And I want to say she's 6'2", 6'3". Super talented with the ball in her hands, can shoot. So it'll be a good matchup. I'm excited. Donovan. They were a team that, were out for revenge a little bit this season. I know they lost in the district title last season at Notre Dame, undefeated. So it'd be a good game. I'm excited. I'll definitely be checking that one out. It'd be 6 p.m. on the 21st. So
yeah, that'd be the state semifinal. Their only common opponent this year is Jackson. So Jackson beat Donovan by 4, and then, as you mentioned, beat MICDS in overtime. So Jackson played good games with those two. Their only common opponent this year. Should be a great game.
Yeah, and then back over on the boys' side, we had a Class 5 team in Southeast Missouri make it to the quarterfinals. Sykeston won their tough district, blew out Farmington in the district championship game, and they got to host the quarterfinal this year. I know that was an issue for them last season. They had to go on the road up to Vianney. Vianney playing in their smaller gym, comfort of their own gym, made 1,000,000 threes and kind of blew out Sykeston in that ball game. But Sykeston won, 1 point away, 1 play away, loses this one to Webster Grove 71-70. After, I think, Cody, the game got moved, right, due to bad weather we had.
It was supposed to be a Friday night game. We knew the storms were coming in, moved to Saturday. And yeah, that Sykeston 2 of 14 from the 3-point line. It was kind of Webster Groves throughout. So Webster Groves had an 11-point lead at half. They were still up by 10 after 3. Just seemed kind of like you alluded to in the other game. Sykeston couldn't really catch up. But then in the fourth quarter, they did. Sykeston took their first lead of the game with 32 seconds to go. Yeah. And you feel like, I wasn't there, obviously, but the field house was probably rocking.
Yeah, it looked like it was insane.
And then Atkinson, you can't say enough about him. He comes down bucket with 24 seconds to go. And then Webster Groves gives some fouls, but gives some credit to Sykeston to battle all the way back, just fill up, just a few seconds short.
Yeah, it was a great game. Webster Groves, they shot the heck out of the ball. Like, they had a couple guys that were knocking down shots. The Shewitt Pels kid was hitting threes. But, it was just the Scotty Atkinson show, man. He is so good. He's a guy that played at Jackson earlier this year, hit the game winner at the buzzer as time expired in overtime. And in that game, Cody said Sykeston took a lead with 30 seconds, and it was, Scotty Atkinson it felt like he could just flip a switch and be like, okay, well, I need to score here. Let's go do that. And he did. Like, Sykeston, because it was going nuts, Cody. Like, it was insane looking, because Sykeston took a lead on a Trace Sadler, come down the lane, 2-hand dunk, and it's like, boom, they did it. Sykeston's about to win this game. And then immediately Scotty Atkinson's like, let me get it at the high post. Let me just get around somebody. Boom, layup, left hand, easy. And you put Sykeston in on the back foot, and they turn it over there late. It was, that kid's crazy. Sophomore. PJ Farmer played well. He was trying to match him. Another guy going D1. He had a good game, 24 points, I think. Atkinson was at 27. Yeah, he's a problem. They have another freshman that's very good. Miles Simpson played pretty well at times. If you're in Class 5 for the next few years, Sykeston, Cape, whoever, you're going to be going through Webster Grove, and it's going to be tough to get by them. I'll say that for certain. But yeah, it felt like, it kind of stinks for Sykeston. It felt like this was their year again. If you're Sykeston, some schools feels like this is our year for the first time in 20 years. Sykeston feels like they have this is our year potential every 5 or so years. They just keep producing crazy talent. But yeah, they had a great senior class. And I don't think that they're going to be bad next year. They're probably going to win 20 games because they're just a machine. But they are losing a lot off this really good season.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. This is another one of those games that you felt like this could have been a game played at Mizzou Arena. But unfortunately, they meet before the semifinals.
Yeah, I agree with that, because looking at the rest of the semifinals, Webster Groves is playing Westminster. And then on the bottom half, Parkview from Springfield is playing Summit Christian from Kansas City. I think Sykeston and Webster Groves are probably the two best teams. If you threw Sykeston on the other side of the bracket, I think they're in the championship playing Webster Groves. And so, yeah, that part stinks. But, great season. A lot of really good players we've got to watch now for a long time. PJ Farmer, Trace Sadler, both going to SEMO. Tristan Wiggins has been awesome throughout, point guard. He's graduating. LaCarrion McCray, him and Wiggins both also scored 1,000 points in their career. He'll be graduating. Chris Artis, he'll be graduating. I mean, they're losing a lot. They're obviously bringing back a lot. I mean, they're going to have good players. Their JV went undefeated. They're a factory, obviously, of talent, but it will be tough to replace these guys. It will be really tough. And part of me that calls Jackson games can say I'm glad to see them go. But the fan of just basketball side of me, kind of sad to see this really, really, really fun team, kind of lose a lot to graduation. But like I said, I don't doubt that if not next year, in a couple of years, there'll be another potential Final Four team. So that, just about does it on the boys' side. Like I said, Class 6, Jackson lost in districts. So nobody up there in Final Four for Southeast Missouri. You got Lafayette and Chaminade, St. Louis, and then Nixa and Oak Park from the west side of the state. So it'll be a good Final Four. Prediction: Chaminade, Oak Park. I'll be rooting for Oak Park to get over the hill, I think is my official statement there. But yeah, then we had a girls' game that took place of Jackson and Jorge Zoo over in Class 6, meeting in the district championship there. And, it was a great run by the Indians girls. It was a lot of fun, very fun season. But they come up short there at Lindbergh, Cody, against Jorge Zoo, and just a tough ball game.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be double overtime the first time they met just a few weeks prior up there at their place. And this one, we'll just blame it on the 5:30 tip in St. Louis, kind of like we did for the boys' game. Thank you, Misha, for the 5:30 game. But a little bit of a slow start. Jackson just struggled to hit the open shots. And
they didn't play bad. Like it didn't feel like there was too many turnovers. They weren't playing bad offensive, like taking bad shots. They played good defense. I mean, they only gave up 54. The ball just was not falling. That's going to happen in games. Shots just don't go in. They had open looks. They had looks that usually go in, and they didn't. But it just sucks a lot whenever it happens in the win or go home situation. And you're playing a good team in Jorge Zoo. It went to double overtime, like you said earlier in the year. So you knew it was going to be a good competitive game. Jackson just came up a bit short. Jorge Zoo played well. They did everything they needed to do on their end to kind of control it, it felt like, throughout. The first matchup, they were turning it over like crazy, especially in the second half. They really controlled the pace of the game. They did not let it get too up and down where Jackson's more comfortable, even if they're not making things. If Jackson gets sped up, they're probably going to play a little bit better. Jorge Zoo kept it a little bit slower. They kept Jackson out of transition enough to make things difficult. And then, the one stat that stood out to me in the first matchup, Jorge Zoo was terrible at the free throw line. They went 12 of 32 and lost a game by 3, I think, in that first matchup. This time, they did not. They went 14 of 17, and that's how you win playoff games, how you win close games, shoot well at the free throw line. They don't win every game, but they do win the close ones. So, that pretty much does it for teams here in Southeast Missouri. So, as far as the games go, that's it. And you kind of transition. I'll just go straight into the transition there of wrapping up some seasons for teams. For that Jackson girls team, 25-2. I mean, insane year. That is as good of a season as Jackson's had, record-wise in my personal memory. They haven't been to the Final Four since 2003. And that is win-loss-wise as good as it gets. 25 wins since the Misha website started, collecting records in 08 or 09. They won 24 a few years ago, so 25 this year hits a high water mark. It was a fun season. They played really, really good teams all year long. A lot of very fun games. Like I said, a lot of state-ranked teams. They beat Principia, who was in the Final Four. Yep. They beat MICDS, that's in the Final Four. They beat Jorge Zoo earlier in the season at Jorge Zoo, who's now in the Final Four. A lot of good teams they played. Their only loss in the regular season was to St. Vincent, who got second in Class 2. So, they had a very fun year, start to finish, won the SEMO conference, went up and won the Lindbergh tournament against very good teams. And, just came up, just maybe a couple plays here or there short in districts, but, not something you can hang your head about. A lot of girls who had very good seasons, very good careers at Jackson going to be graduating. You had 4 seniors, Emmy Gross, Lily Cole, Cameron Alsdorf, Addison Criddle, all very important parts of the team. All girls that did get good amounts of playing time in big ball games are all going to be moving on. So that's going to be tough to replace. Cameron Alsdorf hit 1,000 points earlier this season, or just a couple weeks ago, I guess, in this season. So she's been an awesome player. And somebody I really, commend for how she played this season. It was, you could say last season, like it was her team last season. She averaged, I think, like 15 points a game. Great all-around player. But then this year, she had a lot more help, you could say. She had a very talented young group of girls come up, like Kate Deck, Addison Henderson, Lauren Dory, all these girls making their varsity debuts. And her ability to kind of be the leader out there on the court, but then also, be humble enough, I guess you could say, to defer at times to those girls and trust them to make plays, even though, they're 14, 15 years old. It was a great season for her. It was a lot of fun watching her play. She had crazy games. She put up a monster performance against Hazelwood West there late in the season, played well against Notre Dame late in the season. It was a good leader, then same thing, like I said, a good senior group. Addison Criddle, Lily Cole, Emmy Gross all come off the bench and were phenomenal defenders on that second unit. That's where this Jackson team kind of leaned on, was their pressure defense. Those 3 could press full court, but then also they played phenomenal half-court defense. They could score when the ball was thrown into them. So a really, really good group of girls, Cody. But if you want to look ahead, another good group still going to be sticking around for Jackson next year.
Going to have a great team next year. You mentioned they do lose the 4 seniors. But yeah, great group coming back. And then you always kind of transition. We usually flip over to the JV. Well, girls JV 22-0. So they do have a lot of
people.
Freshmen, sophomores coming up also.
Yeah, very talented team. Going to be still, you could say young, because the age distribution on the roster is kind of weird if compared to most teams. So 4 seniors graduating. They have 2 juniors on the team, Jayla Smith, Lily Watkins. Lily going to be a starter coming back next season. Rachel Berger, the lone sophomore on the varsity roster this year. And then they had, I mentioned Deck, Dory, Henderson, and Reagan Gwynn on the roster here for varsity. So there'll be a lot of girls on the JV moving up, getting opportunity. Some girls that played really, really well. I like this season. I've, seen them play, working at the Sportsplex for several years. I've seen a lot of these girls play for a long time, and so they're very, very talented. And, yeah, this young group for Jackson, I think, is very, very good, very, very poised to continue this run, I think. I think this is a team that is capable of getting back to this spot and potentially, hopefully, in my case, hopefully, get over the hump this time next season and, knock off Corey Zoo. Corey Zoo's kind of the team to beat there in the district. They've won, I don't remember what the stat was. I saw like 5 of 7 district titles there. So they're a very big force. And so you just got to hope that Jackson can maybe get over the hump there and, break through.
Yeah, they do already have on Misha next season's schedule. So you see they're going to play all those teams, Doniphan, Principia, Corjesu. They're playing the Lindbergh Invitational. So a lot of the same teams they'll play next year.
Yeah. Also, I guess the only interesting note, they're playing in something shootout beginning of the year in Farmington, so a little bit closer. It's nice. Always good. Always good to play close. Great year for them, and very, very fun team to watch. Very excited to see how they progress going into next year. So, I guess we could just flip over to the boys' side, Cody, and talk about the season Jackson had. And 21-7, in my opinion, kind of outpaced my expectations before the season. I did, just out of, fun, boredom, pick how I thought Jackson would do this year. I think I had them winning 17 games. So, yeah, they outpaced whatever I even thought. And I didn't know. I didn't know what to coming into this season. They brought back Cole Deck as a lone starter. They had guys like Colton Toma, who played some here on varsity last season. He was the backup point guard. You had, Braden Thompson, who played a little bit here and there. Austin Criddle, who hadn't had a big opportunity. Lee Ivy hadn't really had a big opportunity yet on varsity. So there was a lot of guys that were honestly unknowns, Cody, in my opinion, that stepped up this season and played really, really well and led them to 21 wins. No small accomplishment.
Yeah, we knew that Cole was going to be their leading scorer. I mean, I remember talking the first couple of games, we were going to see who would support him on the offensive side. Knew that Jackson was going to have an above-average defense and will again next year. But, yeah, Cole kind of led the way this year.
Yeah, good season. Like from the very beginning, we didn't know what they were going to be like. And immediately my expectations actually went down because game one they played Owensville, who I will say I didn't have high thoughts of Owensville going into it. I knew they were well coached. But immediately Jackson hits a last-second shot to win that game against Owensville, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe 17 was optimistic. I don't know. But then they come back immediately, finish runner-up in their Borgia tournament, losing to that Principia team that blew everybody out this season. Then they just continue to play well. They won, or they got third in SEMO conference. It felt like there in the SEMO conference, you kind of got that identity that there was going to be a real defensive team, and it might not always be pretty, but they were going to be able to win ball games. I think they kept doing that throughout the season, even against pretty good teams. Yeah,
that was their calling card this season. That's kind of Coach Thomas' calling card. Do it on the defensive end. Maybe your defense will lead to offense, but definitely where they hang their hat on that end of the floor.
Yeah, and they won the Christmas tournament first time in over a decade, so that was a big accomplishment, knocking off Cape in the championship. They won good games. The back stretch of the schedule was very tough. They lost ball games there, played some really good teams. And come up just short against Seckman in overtime. So that was a tough way to go out for sure if you're Jackson, a team that you had beaten pretty consistently historically up until that point. But they do fall there to Seckman. It was too bad. It was a district I thought Jackson had a chance to maybe win. I knew it was going to be pretty even district throughout. The top 5 seeds I thought could all be winners in that one, but a tough way to go out. And you look at the senior class, 6 guys: Gavin Allspall, Lee Ivy, Colton Toma, Cole Dick, Austin Criddle, Braden Thompson, all another group that whole made big impacts on the team. I'm not going to be shy about the fact that Cole Dick, obviously insane, made the biggest impact. He averaged 25 points a game. I've been watching Jackson basketball since I was in school, so let's say 2009-ish till now. I've seen most every game. I've seen games every season, seen all the players, know all the best players during that time period, and Cole Dick is going to go down as one of those guys. He's going to be somebody you talk about in 20 years of, this guy is one of the best to do it. If you're drafting all-time Jackson teams of the last 20 years, Cole Dick's going to be one of those guys. He finished over 1,000 points. I want to say somewhere in 1,200 range. So his individual scoring season this year is going to rank up there in the all-time marks. And just an awesome, awesome season, awesome career for him. And then the other guys, like I said, stepped up and they played really, really well. Jackson's going to miss him for sure next year.
Yeah, Cole, just a guy when you needed a bucket, you felt like he was there. He would come through, had a lot of games this season when he put his head down, he just took over the game. And you like to see that, especially out of scores. And then, they're losing a lot. You talk about height, a couple of 6'4" guys that kind of led the rebounding stats, and Thompson there, Ivy. So Colton Toma obviously handled the point most of the season. So, you're losing a lot with those 6 seniors. Yeah,
but a good group coming back, though. I'm it's a lot to lose. It's going to be a lot of scoring, a lot of size to lose. But I'm still optimistic about next season. There are guys who have impressed me. Jory Toma really stepped up, played really well this season as kind of in the number 2 role, especially the back half of the season. He led them in scoring in that final game against Seckman, hit one of the biggest shots of the year in that game as well. And, you got to mention this, the lone freshman on the team, John Ernst, Cody. I'm pretty optimistic going forward, especially, when you have a pretty good base, I think, of young guys to build around.
When you talk about 3 of your best defenders on the team being Jory Toma, Blaine Reagan, and Ernst, those 3, sophomore, freshman. So they're all coming back for 2 more years.
Yeah, so it'll be an exciting group. Definitely be a team to watch. And we'll move, talk about Cape Central. We mentioned, Cody and I talked about they're in districts. They didn't get far, you can say. They lost in the semifinals But they had one of the biggest upsets of the year as a 7 seed, beating Festus there in the first round at their home court. So that was a cool moment. They nearly knocked off Farmington. It was a good game throughout there. And it was an impressive effort. I was impressed with how Cape finished the season. They were an experienced team, a team with a new coach, and a coach who before the season even admitted this is going to be a rebuilding year. There's no expectations. There's going to be a lot of girls stepping up into new roles, and there's going to be a lot of new going on. But yeah, Coach Summer McCauley, Purdue, a fantastic athlete back in the day as well, freak at everything at Notre Dame, all-time great volleyball and basketball player. Really turned them around. I mean, also just like she put up the best volleyball season maybe of all time at Cape Central earlier this year. But yeah, a good season that finished really well late. They won some games I was surprised by. They beat decent teams in the SEMO conference. They knocked off Kennett, they knocked off Dexter late, they knocked off Woodland. All teams that if you would have asked me, I thought would probably have knocked off Cape Central, and then they go and beat Festus in district. So a good starting point for sure. If you're Cape Central, you lose some seniors, but they really bring back a good group that I think that they can bounce back and maybe even have a better season than this year. Maybe get up over 500 and be pretty competitive next year. I kind of like what they have.
Yeah, you beat a 20-win Festus team. Not easy to do, especially in the first round. But on their home floor, they do lose 3 seniors: Vincent, Furlow, and Moss, all 3 to graduation. But yeah, bring back most of the team.
Yeah, good group. I know Jamie Dawson-Ide and Abby Davenport were all conference players, so both of them very good scorers. So I'm very optimistic. I'm excited to see how they grow, and if Coach McCauley Purdue can make them a pretty consistent, solid team here in the SEMO conference. I think it's definitely possible for them to do. And then we'll just jump over to the boys' side. A good season overall, I would say, Cody. It felt like there were multiple parts through the Cape Central season. There was a lot of uncertainty early. The boys and girls at Cape both had new coaches this year. Coach Lamont Frazier taking over, an experienced coach, but also filling in for Coach Drew Church, who had been around for a very long time, I think 18 years or so. So there was a lot of uncertainty. Came out. It was mixed reviews, I would say, early on. They blew out, win in their first game, then immediately lose second game. In a game I was kind of surprised to see them lose. But then, they turn around and looked pretty good in the SEMO conference tournament. We saw them a couple times. They played Jackson, and they looked solid. It was a team that lost a ton from last season, but overall, Cody, I thought the pieces they had, they used well and played pretty good throughout the season.
Yeah, they started 4-1. We knew that SEMO conference championship against Sykeston would be tough for them, and then they drop a game at Farmington by 10. But that's tough playing at Farmington early in the season. So 4-3 going into the Christmas tournament, and we know that Jackson defeats them in the championship of that one, but they go 2-1 against Jackson this year. So pretty good, just tough loss there at the end of the season.
And that was a good post-Christmas tournament. It was a big jumping off point, I thought, for them. It felt like they embraced the defensive identity for them as well. A lot of people outside looking in, maybe a boring year for some of you watching Southeast Missouri basketball because you have Jackson, Notre Dame, Cape, kind of slower paced than maybe you're used to, very defensive heavy teams. But Cape went on a crazy run there, especially defensively. After the Christmas tournament, they win, 7 straight games.
Yeah, they won 7 in a row. Didn't lose in January.
The defense was unbelievable in these games, 36, 33, 40, 42, 35, 34. And, kind of culminated. They were hitting a great trajectory there. They win on a Saturday against Jeff City, a very good team. And then just snap of the fingers, it felt like everything kind of went the opposite direction. You lose Tyshandre Edwards to an injury on the season, and you have to play, or in that game, you get blown out at CBC. You have no Mills or Edwards. You have to play Principia. You get blown out. They do bounce back, play well against New Madrid, but then immediately play a great 3 quarters against Sykeston, lose that, though, by 19. You finish out the year with a couple of wins in games you should, and they did take care of business. And then ultimately, as we know, lose pretty big there to Sykeston, which felt inevitable. That Sykeston team has been phenomenal, but it was definitely, there was a point there where I thought Cape Central could be competitive and maybe even knock off Sykeston if we get into a win and go home situation with how they were playing before the Edwards injury.
Yeah, depending on where that game is and everything. But yeah, without Edwards, it's tough to beat Sykeston at full strength. But you look at who they're losing; they lose 6 seniors.
Yeah,
big ones being Rivers and Mills.
Yeah, that court's losing tough.
Yeah, they also lose Harris, Walling, McFerrin, Musgrave. When you look at underneath, though, I mean, you got Morris Young, Edwards, obviously, Spain, all coming back. So should be good in the post.
Yeah, the front court's going to be very solid again. Yeah, you just got to find those guards to take those spots. Good year out of both of those guys in Mills and Rivers. Guys that are kind of stepping up into a bigger role this season. That it's kind of been behind talented, more experienced guards over the years, and they both look really good. Mateo Rivers, I mean, in my opinion, if it was a thing, I'd put him on first team all defense in the SEMO conference. Mm-hmm. He made people's life terrible, miserable out on the perimeter. Marquez Mills, really complete player. It was fun watching him. He could knock down shots. He was a high flyer. So yeah, very fun team. And like you said, I think they have the potential to be good again next year. If Edwards is healthy and whatnot, and everybody's back that you expect to be back, I think they could be competitive once again in a SEMO conference that has a little bit of flux going on. You don't know. Some teams are going to drop a little bit. Some teams are going to take a step up. So Cape Central could definitely be in that void there.
Yeah, you look at – we do the same thing when they're good. When you look over at their JV not as good this year. Just a couple of wins on the season. But, you look at who comes up and can fill in on the varsity.
Yeah, so a good season for Cape Central, boys and girls. Good first year for Coach Frazier, 18-8. Good start. Felt like he, kind of established, it seems like, that he, wants to maybe dial back the pace a hair, establish defense, and they really adopted that identity, it felt like, late in the season, and I'm excited to see where it takes them next year. They're going to have good talent. Improvements, not always a straight line up for everybody, but I think Morris Young, Edwards, these guys can make a big jump and be really, really good once again. So I'll jump down to one of our other Cape County teams here over in Fruitland, over Saxony Lutheran, who we'll talk about over on the boys' side. Another team had a lot of change from last season, kind of a late head coaching change hire there. They brought in Coach Darren Scott that had been at Jackson previously. They lose a lot of scoring from last year's team. Very good couple of years at Saxony. Lose a lot of those guys to the next level. So you knew they were very talented. So there's a lot of question marks. They do finish the year 17-18 or 7-18. They lose at Greenville in the first round of Class 3 District 2. And they're another team, it felt like they're kind of trying to figure out their identity. It is going to be, under Coach Scott, the defensive side for sure. And it's just kind of finding those guys to step up over on the offensive side, see what they have, and then put them in the right places to succeed. And I said I have belief that they'll be able to do that. I don't know necessarily what any plan is going for the future. I know they just hired a new athletic director, Mike Vipperman, I believe. So we'll see where they go from here. Coach Scott, good coach, been around for a while, has had a lot of success here at Jackson, Notre Dame, Poplar Bluff, other places. They lose 4 seniors, Owen Buckeye, Austin Hunt, Wesley Keeney, and Jackson Wilson. But they bring back a pretty solid group of guys that I have a lot of optimism for. Nashawn Davis at times did a good job stepping into kind of the lead guard role and giving them buckets when they need them. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how they progress and how some of the younger guys move up. They have a big roster of guys, a lot of young guys on the team, a lot of young guys on JV, freshmen. So it'll be interesting. I'll be curious to see how the progression goes and how, Coach Scott had a short turnaround, short runway there. So we'll see if him, Coach Abernathy, are both there in the same roles next season. And, see what they can do. I'm optimistic. I know those guys have had success, boys and girls basketball, in case of Coach Abernathy. So I have some faith that they'll be able to maybe turn things around, have a bit of a better season next year. And then speaking of needing a better season next year, the girls 3-22, similar situation, a lot of change from last season. Last year they had a very good team. They lose a lot off of it. Won 19 games a season ago, down to 3 this season. But it was a lot to lose to graduation. They're going to. It was something you kind of expected going into the year. Didn't know how it was going to pan out. Tough year. They play in the SEMO conference. A pretty good year for the SEMO conference in girls basketball. Obviously Notre Dame solid. Jackson was 25-1. So it was going to be an uphill battle at times for them. And they lose 3 seniors in Camille Ritchie, Faith Dreyer, Tamora Criddle. Some of those girls that have been on good teams, have played well throughout their careers, going to be moving on. But you look at them, and it's a similar situation with Jackson, how they're built heavily on younger girls and underclassmen, and the roster distribution kind of interesting. When you look at it, 1 girl that's a junior on the entire roster, Tally Renshaw, and then on the varsity you have 3 sophomores, and the rest are freshmen. So you expect. I expect a pretty big jump out of them next season, Cody. A lot of good players and a team that's used to winning, definitely over at Saxony. So I think they'll be able to turn it around. Coach Chris Crawford, good coach, and Chuck Williams assisting him. They definitely both know girls basketball pretty well, and both have had good success.
Yeah, and see what class they're in. I mean, depending on how you do, we know in these private schools, depends on what class you're in the next year. So not sure exactly where they'll shake out.
Yeah, and then I guess we can move on to the next team, talking about you don't know where they're going to end up being maybe. We'll go talk about the Notre Dame girls. They were in Class 6, District 1 this year. Felt like a little bit out of the depth there a little bit. You kind of gotten a lot of good play the last few years and has bumped them up to the highest classification in girls basketball. We know coming into the year some of the losses they had on the roster. You lose 3 potential D1 girls, you're going to take a step back. They still played pretty good basketball throughout the season. They were, overall, I would say, probably the number 2 team in the SEMO conference. Finished the year 13-15. So a good season for the Notre Dame girls. They got second in the SEMO conference tournament to Jackson. They fell to Jackson, obviously, in districts as well in the semifinals. And, you look at the postseason play, and you might wonder if it does turn out maybe a little bit differently if you are in, more around where your, class numbers line up. Right. And I'm not sure exactly how that goes. We'll see if there's any changes if they drop down 1 or 2. I'm not totally sure how that always shakes out, but a good year for them. They played well throughout. They had good wins. They took care of business most of the season against SEMO conference teams, with the exception of Jackson. They also lost at Dexter, a game, close game. They played pretty well. They were a good team to watch, and they were led on the inside by some pretty talented players. Liza Barnett, Olivia Wagner, very good in the post. Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of a drop from those two, especially inside. They're going to lose quite a bit of production and scoring, especially down the stretch. Liza Barnett, I thought, played really well. She really carried them offensively, had a ton of double-doubles, double-double machine. Olivia Wagner, good player throughout the year. Skylar Kraft, good guard, good shooter. So there's going to be some losses, but I am optimistic about some of the girls coming back that I saw that I really liked. Mia Panton, very good player out on the wing, has good length and size, athleticism, and a good shooter as well. Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame will be hovering around 500 for long. I think they're going to have a good group, few good years coming up here over the next few seasons, and keep building on this pretty solid year overall. Trying to look at their roster. Sophia DeJournet, I also like. She's a girl I've seen for a long time in those younger grades. It's always been pretty good on the parochial league circuit.
Right.
So they do lose a decent amount, though, Cody, but I'm pretty optimistic.
Anytime you lose 5 seniors, it's going to be big. As you mentioned, only 2 juniors on the roster this year. So Mia and Caleb, we'll see if they carry the load next year.
Yep, so a good season for them, but I'm expecting them to continue to play at a high level, continue to be one of the more competitive teams in the SEMO conference. But then you flip over to their boys' side, and, they finished the year 14-14. They lose in the district title to Dexter, heartbreaking 2-point game. Game I thought they would win. They could win And it's, you want to talk about a team that's going to be losing a lot. There is no team in Southeast Missouri, maybe in the state, maybe in America, that is going to be graduating as many seniors as Notre Dame will this next year.
Yeah, 10 seniors. Almost impossible to replace all that. But if you're going to, you do it with a very, very good JV team, as Notre Dame has this year. Just 2 losses on the season for their JV. And, impossible to replace 10 seniors. But as you go down through the list, Caleb, but they will try to do it next year.
Yeah, and, this is going to be a lot to replace. They had a good year, 14-14, 500. Doesn't look great maybe over on the, if you look back 10 years from now, but they had a good year. They started out slow. I was worried about them early on. They go to Charleston, lose. They lost a couple games in the SEMO conference tournament, lost to, a great team in Sikeston, and then lost a close one to Jackson. But then it felt like they started to bounce back. Even in a loss, they played well at Sikeston just like a week after the SEMO conference tournament. Kept that competitive. They played pretty well in the Christmas tournament. They got, I believe, 5th place there. They did play in maybe the worst basketball game of all time against Charleston. Both teams shot.
They held Charleston to no field goals in a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. We're not focusing on the 10% shooting. We're focusing on the incredible defense. 26 points held in a game. Phenomenal. But no, in seriousness, they played good basketball. They closed the season playing well. It didn't always result in victories. They lost a close one to a good Woodland team. They lost in overtime to a good Borgia team. Yep. They lost close to a good Farmington team. But they did pick up good victories here and there. They knocked off Hillsboro, who's a solid squad. They won at Poplar Bluff, big. Then they beat that Dexter team that ended up beating them a couple weeks later by 20. So a good year, and a lot to make up for. Like we keep saying, 10 seniors is a lot to kind of make up for. We did say the JV is very, very good. I am optimistic about where they could be at next season, but you just kind of look at the guys they are losing. At the top 2 you could point out immediately: Colton Johnson, Brett Dohan, both 1,000-point scorers. A guy, Colton Johnson, who's the all-time leader in threes made for a career season, single game, and then Dohan, a top 10 scorer all-time in school history. Both guys that have been playing a lot of games on varsity for a very long time, and it's going to be tough to replace all that scoring, all that leadership, and then when you have 10 seniors, they do make up the bulk of the lineup, so you're losing your starting point guard in Londaway, good defender, Trenton Schumacher. A lot, Cody. They're losing a lot off this team. Hunter Bonham, a guy who plays bigger maybe than what he is, about 5'11", I think, playing like power forward for most of the years. So, it's going to be a lot. I'm optimistic, like you said, but, losing 10 seniors is nothing to shrug off for sure.
Yeah, you're going to lose 95% of your scoring.
For sure.
Hudson Dennis, probably the main player that comes back for them, but pretty good JV squad. Yeah,
I'll be interested to see what they look like. I do like you said, Hudson Dennis, good player inside, good post player, big build, very good athlete. I expect he is going to be the starting center next season. I liked Devin Dannemuller, another sophomore. He's good around the bucket. He's got a lot of post moves, big build as well. But then it's just going to be kind of the unknown. Like you said, we know that they've won a lot of games against JV teams and freshman teams, and Cody has been reffing their games for a long time, parochial league, all the St. Vincent kids. But
a lot of St. Mary, St. Vincent kids, a lot of Sportsplex on the weekend, kids,
a lot of Sportsplex kids,
a lot of travel ball kids. They're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to be good. And like I said, they took it to a lot of good JV teams. We saw them play Jackson, knock them off a couple times in some of the games we called. So they'll be a good group. I'm very excited to see how those those young kids transition up onto the big level, and it'll be interesting. Cody, looking around just off the top of the head around the SEMO conference, Sikeston won't be bad, but they are going to be down a hair. They're going to lose a lot of talent. New Madrid losing some guys inside, but also have a pretty good young group. Yep. Charleston's a team that's bringing a lot back. They're going to lose Deshaun Henderson, the big guy inside, but their team I expect to be a lot better as well. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of teams going to have a lot of new faces and a lot of change going on, I think, in the SEMO conference.
Yeah, Jackson, Cape, Sykeston, Notre Dame, all gonna probably compete for it. But as you mentioned, Charleston, some of the teams that we thought were down in the SEMO conference, Dexter being one of those that ended up having a really good year. Yep. So, yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, you never know. Players move. Things like that happen too, so you never know. You can't account for that until later on. But it'd be exciting. And, it was a fun year overall here in basketball. A lot of good games. Cody and I called a lot of good games, a lot of fun games over on the Jackson side. We saw some good ones from, Cape, Notre Dame, Sykeston obviously was always entertaining to watch. It was a good year, a lot of fun games, and a lot of good small schools as well. That was kind of maybe the story of the season. Kind of how those small schools plays, I'd say.
Yeah, kind of around our surrounding area, the Woodlands, the Scott Cities. I mean, you had some really good basketball immediately around Cape County also.
Yeah, that is a good thing about Southeast Missouri. It's always a basketball region. Teams have football, but it just feels like everybody counts down the days until basketball gets here. And then, now we're just about ready to turn the page here, Cody, get started on some of those spring sports coming up. Before you know it, look at the calendar. It's March 16th at time of recording. We're less than a week away, I think, from spring sports getting kicked off here.
Yeah, Jackson baseball, always a big deal in our area. A lot of players moved on to the collegiate level, already making a noise, making an impact with their teams. But yeah, only about a week away from baseball.
Yeah, it'll be a good baseball season. Cody and I I guess we can talk about what we're kind of looking forward to doing. We'll definitely be covering baseball and spring sports. I'll tell you right now, I might be the only person in Southeast Missouri, but I do love track and field. Just as a fan, people are like, "Oh, Caleb, what do you do when you're rocking the baby to sleep at 1:00 in the morning?" This Saturday, I was watching the NCAA indoor track and field meet. So, kind of a sicko for track and field. So I'll be keeping up with that for sure. Like you said, baseball is competitive. This is also a very good region for baseball. A lot of the small schools are very good. I'm not sure where to look at right now. I'll definitely be talking to people, the Scott Cities, the Chaffies, the Bell Cities, all kinds of people can show up and be really, really good. Oran's always good. We'll be, watching some Jackson, some Cape, some Notre Dame, some Saxony, see how those teams kind of do, how they start out their years. And, not going to make any promises, but I do want to talk to some baseball people, some people that have their pulse or the finger on the pulse of baseball in the area. Definitely get them in here to kind of talk about what to expect this season and maybe talk about some of these games. And then also, admittedly, like I said, Cody and I won't be on the radio every game for Jackson baseball, so we might not see as much. So we'll bring in some guests here coming up soon. We've talked to Coach Brownsberger from Jackson, a guy Cody and I talk to after every game. We got to know well. Have him come on, wrap up the season. I'm hoping to have some other coaches maybe come wrap up basketball and eventually talk about what to expect next season in basketball. We'll get to football and kind of talk to some of those people. So that's kind of our game plan, I'd say, to get to talk to maybe some different people, get to hear other voices besides our own.
Yeah, get through, like you mentioned, wrapping up a couple basketball, maybe some teams that had some success, and then get into the spring sports and the warmer weather.
Yeah, excited for that. Excited for the warmer weather, for sure. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting. It's been a great time talking about basketball. Best of luck to all the seniors that will be graduating, doing whatever it is you do after high school. It's been a lot of fun watching them play. And, Cody, it's been a good season. I'm pretty satisfied with some of the basketball we've seen.
Yeah, pretty fun. Obviously, we get to watch a lot more than others. And enjoy what we do.
Yep, very fortunate. So, for Cody and myself, we appreciate all you guys listening, watching. Definitely make sure to like, subscribe, all those good things. We appreciate it, as always, interacting with us online. So keep that up, and we'll keep covering sports as best as we can here in the Cape Girardeau area. And we appreciate all of you that do watch and listen. So thank you guys, and we will catch you in the next one.